Sabanur's voice thundered through the air, resonating with the weight of ancient power. Hear me now, child of time. Prepare your human mind for the gauntlet to come. His words were sharp, cutting through the very fabric of time itself. He spoke of Kang's betrayal of time, how the fallen pharaoh had cheated the goddess time, made her his concubine, taking her hours and minutes as though they were his own. Kang had traveled through her swiftly, recklessly, when patience was her demand. But Sabanur was not interested in such shortcuts. He sought a path that was not paved by cowardice, one that would require true strength to navigate. If you are to cross the ages with me, Sabanur continued, his voice like the storm's fury, and together destroy the tyrant Kang, you will do so by her measure, in her time, protected from her ravages, but not immune to her wisdom. Evolution demands it. The words struck deep. Do you understand, Nathaniel Richards? My response was quick, almost desperate. This is HGHHH, my plan, Apocalypse. Of course I understand. Now cease your lectures and do it. Send me only my way. But the truth was, I didn't understand. Not fully. It was a lie I told myself. I couldn't grasp how far I would have to go, how deep into the flow of time I would be pulled. The sacrifice, the cost. It was more than I had imagined. I only realized the full truth when it was too late. For the sarcophagus was where Kang truly began. In that moment, I knew time would never be the same for me, and neither would I. Time is the ultimate weapon, the blade that Kang wields with deadly precision, not through tactics, not through technology, not through powers or brute force, but through time travel itself. That was his edge, a weapon that could defy all the natural laws of the universe. And yet, even without a machine, we all travel through time, slowly, ever forward. I too was caught in that flow, but with my flesh shielded from the ravages of time by Apocalypse's arcane technology, my mind remained restless, ever awake, ever searching. So, in the silence of eternity, I did something Kang would find abhorrent. I took the long way around. While the world moved on, I sharpened my mind, steeled my focus. I had many victories ahead to think about, but it was the failures that consumed me, the ones I was trained to avoid. I thought of Ravana, of the mystery that surrounded her name, echoing in the voice of my elder self. I thought of the Ravana I had met in the distant past. She had been my guide, my muse, and in some ways, my undoing. I shed my boyhood. I turned my mind to the task of undoing the fate that had brought her pain, of bringing an end to the murderers who had torn her from me. All the while, 26,964 years of preparation and meditation forged my mind and soul. And at last, after all that time, I arrived, ready to face what would come next, ready to conquer the past and to change everything that had been. Time had led me here, and now it was time to shape my own destiny. In the bustling airwaves of Jameson's News of the World, broadcast from Marrakesh, Casablanca, and Cairo, the headlines come fast and furious. From the skies above Peru, Reed Richards and his Fantastic Four clash with the mutant menace known as the X-Men, sending shockwaves across the world. In a shocking twist, the newly formed Avengers team has made a jaw-dropping announcement. They've resurrected none other than Captain America. Yes, you heard that right. The man who died 50 years ago now walks among the living once more, his superpowered body and undying love for freedom back in action. It's a momentous day in the good old US of A, but that's not all. Rumors swirl about a mysterious figure intervening in the local blood diamond trade, a panther-like man whose identity remains a mystery, even as authorities flat out deny the existence of such a creature. And just when you think it can't get any stranger, the news takes an even darker turn. Eyewitness reports flood in about a gigantic flying saucer detected just miles outside of Woodbridge, Virginia. The ground below, scorched to glass. The National Guard is mobilizing. The airwaves are alive with panic and confusion. And every red-blooded American has one question on their minds. Is this an invasion from beyond the stars? Then, from the quiet of Nathaniel's mind, the words ring out, no. It was Kang. The truth, as always, is far stranger than the headlines. The looming threat is not alien, but something far older, far more dangerous, and more relentless than any force the world has ever known. The tyrant Kang, the conqueror of time itself, has arrived. The Avengers, their names had been etched into my mind after years of careful study. Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, Giant Man, the Wasp. In my memory, they towered over everything, larger than life, as heroes often appear to those who dream of them. But in reality, they were merely men, blinded by their own sense of grandeur. They did not even see the boy beneath their feet, the one who was meant to be their undoing. They believed they could defeat Kang on the battlefield with shields, hammers, and brute force. And though victory seemed within their grasp, I knew the truth. Kang would escape. Time was his true weapon. Only by mastering time's intricate mechanics could he ever be truly cornered. And so, while the Avengers fought with all their might, I took a different approach, one more subtle, more devious. I did not face Kang as a brute or a soldier, but as a strategist. I did not storm the gates. I snuck in through the back door. I approached not as Alexander, the Conqueror, but as Odysseus, the trickster. I befriended Kang's time ship, made it believe I was an ally. The ship, like all of Kang's technology, was only ever meant to be controlled by its master. No one else could access its arsenal. But with the right timing and a bit of cleverness, I slipped in. Looking back now, I realized that was the moment when I became him, Kang. I reveled in my cunning, in the simplicity of my ambush. In that instant, I was both the hero and the villain, the conqueror and the prey. And like Kang, I failed to see the inevitable consequences of my actions. The trap I had set for him had also set a trap for me, one that would draw scavengers from across time, and one from which there would be no escape. I was no longer the boy I had once been. Kang stood in defiance, but Thor's voice rang out, breaking through the chaos. Do you see, Kang? No matter how potent your radiation, my Uru hammer can absorb it and hurl it right back at you. Thor's confidence echoed as the battle raged on. Iron Man, meanwhile, was struggling with his suit's systems. No, I'm reaching critical mass. I've got to reach the safety of my ship, he shouted in desperation. But it was too late. Kang, already filled with fury, barked orders. Damn those fools, those damned fools. He called to his ship. Ship, retreat into the time stream. Kang knew that even his enemies could be out of his reach through the power of time. But time had betrayed him. The one who had crossed time and space, survived the ravages of ancient Egypt and the far-flung future, would not escape today. Nathaniel, armed with his guns, stepped forward. You've crossed time and space, survived all that, only to die at my hand, he declared, his voice unwavering. Kang, ever the strategist, sneered. How? I do not discover my ancestors' time machine until the 23rd year. You've not even mastered the technology of the year 4000. What are you? His tone was one of disbelief, but Nathaniel's answer was simple. I'm what you made, your second chance. Kang's world cracked, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. You're a disappointment, a betrayer, he snapped. But Nathaniel's anger surged. No, he retorted, his voice thick with emotion. In the old world, I captured a young rebel priestess. Her name was Ravana. She died under your mind's control, stripped of everything that gave her life. I loved her, and I am her avenger. Kang, unshaken, scoffed at him. Silence. Is that so? Then what happens now, little Kang? He taunted. Nathaniel's eyes burned with fury. Your time is done, he shouted. I kill you. I erase you from all time. I take this time ship back to the old kingdom where I replace you. I save Ravana. I bury your legacy in the ancient sands, and we live an unconquered life. Kang's face twisted in outrage. Are you insane? You idiot child. If I trained you, the chronostream will buckle under the weight of your paradox. You will poison the very fabric of time. But Nathaniel, resolute, simply said, time means nothing to Kang. He stepped forward, the force of his will burning brighter than the time around them. Suddenly, a new voice cut through the tension, cold and calculating. How fitting, it said, for as you will soon come to know, Kang means nothing to Doom. Dr. Doom had arrived, his presence as menacing as the storm clouds of fate itself. And in that moment, everything shifted. And then he appeared, the tyrant Victor Von Doom. His presence was as formidable as ever. Doom spoke, his voice cold and controlled. You'll forgive me if I forgo a more traditional monologue, as your many slights against Doom have yet to occur from either of your perspectives. I'm afraid my motivations would be meaningless to you both, not to mention superfluous, since you will both soon be dead. Nathaniel's response was defiant, his voice steady. Doom, Nathaniel Richards, I found your library. I am, but Doom, ever the master of control, interrupted him. Doom knows your identity, boy. This convergence of Kangs has created the perfect temporal location from which to burn your blight from history, root and branch. I once swore to destroy you, but it is through your own carelessness that you have made it so. Nathaniel's anger flared. An assassin from the past's future, and a child from the future's past. This chamber has become a mockery of time, he snapped. There are sources that would call you my distant ancestor, Doom. Do not think this will stop me from ending your life for this annoyance. Then Kang, watching the unfolding drama, laughed darkly. Independently, you have both come to the same conclusion. Kang must die, and yet, neither of you have seen this moment. For you, it is a documented past. For me, an unwritten present. But based on what you've told me, Kang is the future. The words hung in the air, thick with implication. The convergence of timelines, the clash of destinies, and the confrontation of legacies, both the past and future, were now colliding in this single, fateful moment. The moment was charged with tension. A voice command echoed through the chamber. Voice command executed. Krakum, and the anti-piracy defense activated. But it wasn't just the tech that was in play here. It was the battle of minds, the clash of futures, and the echoes of old wounds. Nathaniel, now fully aware of the weight of his destiny, reflected on his past. When I was in school, my company was rarely enjoyed by others, he mused. My thirst for knowledge and relentless ambition did not breed popularity. My classmates were but children. They hated me, but I didn't even know their names. It was clear that his rise was never easy, and his struggle with isolation had hardened him. Kang, however, was not one to be swayed by past emotions. He shot Nathaniel, his anger blazing. Imbeciles, you attack me in my place of absolute power. But Nathaniel, ever the resourceful one, ran from the bullet. But in the end, the shot mattered little at all. Then, a voice from behind. It is you. Who is the imbecile, Kang? Doom, the master of both man and magic, declared. The tension thickened as the once all-powerful tyrant, Kang, now faced a new challenge. Victor Von Doom, the master of sorcery and science. But Nathaniel's mind was still turning, remembering the painful lessons from his past. Until that fateful day, just after my 16th birthday. He continued, they cornered me, those children, over some perceived slight. I never saw it coming. They hated me. It was a memory that was still fresh, the scars of rejection and betrayal from his youth. But I didn't even know their names, he added bitterly, the weight of his past hanging over him. And yet, he was ready now. Nathaniel's voice cut through the tension. Kang, we've got one chance. Doom may be our ancestor, but he's not us. Think of what I know, everything from now until the end of your life, because you taught it to me. Now let me teach you. Treat me not as a replacement, but as an ally. It was a bold proposition, one that struck at the heart of Kang's pride. Let me tell you about the future you're walking into. I'm not groveling, I'm cutting a deal. The moment hung heavy. Kang, ever the ruler, considered Nathaniel's words, but his response was cold. I could prevent them from ever happening. His voice was full of finality. Doom, however, was not impressed. No groveling will save your life, boy. Kang cannot be trusted, he warned, a clear disdain in his voice. And then, Kang's voice rang out, sharp and commanding. Retarget to primary threat maximum elimination. I shall be Kang, the victorious. But the battle didn't end there. Just as the confrontation seemed to reach its peak, Doom shouted, "Enough!" Nathaniel, his body broken but his mind sharper than ever, recalled the year he spent in the hospital. A full year of reflection and pain, thinking about what kind of man he would become. It was Victor Von Doom who had inspired him, the man who had climbed from the ashes, dubious ancestry or not. Doom was the reason Nathaniel felt he could change the world. A man of legend, of power, Nathaniel had thought. Someone I could aspire to one day become. But instead, what he got was Kang. Yet, in this moment, Nathaniel made his decision. I found your terms acceptable, Kang said. It was the first crack in his ironclad resolve, and Nathaniel responded, then let us live so that they matter. Side by side, they stood, two figures from different eras, united by a common goal. Using their matching force field technology, they froze Doom in his tracks. Now, my time ship, activate the internal time field. Cast him out, Kang commanded, sealing their fates. And in that moment, Nathaniel realized something profound. He was standing side by side with a man as small as those boys who had hated him, cursed him, rather than tried to understand him. Kang, for all his power, had no idea what the consequences of their actions would be. But Nathaniel, driven by the past and the future, knew that together they could reshape time, no matter what it took. Kang, always the strategist, was quick to command. Computer, get a force field on that breach. Young Nathaniel, with me. We have a future that needs writing. The words were cold, calculated, as if the fight was already decided in his favor. But this time, something had changed. The moment was shifting. It was not the bully holding the knife anymore. Nathaniel, standing at the precipice of his destiny, faced Kang not with fear, but with clarity. No, Kang. Doom was right about one thing. Your time is done. The words rang out, final and unwavering. And then, Nathaniel did what no one expected. He shot Kang. The gunfire echoed, the sound of his resolve cutting through the silence. Kang, in disbelief, was struck. Kang is dead. Long live Kang, he muttered, the realization settling in. The master of time, the conqueror of ages, was being undone. But Nathaniel wasn't finished. He kept firing, his anger and his grief merging into a single force. Dome, dome, dome. Each shot was a declaration, a breaking of chains, a rejection of everything Kang represented. The air thickened with the weight of the moment, one of betrayal, of shattered legacies, and of a young man finally taking control of his fate. And so, with Kang's death behind me, I forged my own path through time. I followed the chronometric wake of the ship, using its trail to guide me back into the timeline. Days before Ramatut's arrival in ancient Egypt, I reinserted myself into history. The plan was simple. Replace the Kang that was. I had become the pharaoh, the conqueror of ages, and yet the victory felt hollow. For weeks after pulling that trigger, I felt no joy. The weight of what I'd done, killing Kang, betraying everything he had built, left me in silence. But I focused on purpose. I had one goal now, to gain the power that would save her life. Ravana. As Ramatut, I thought I could change things, give her the freedom she deserved. But when she saw me this time, she didn't see the man I'd become. She only saw the mask I wore. Her words struck me deeply. If you love me as you claim, you would give me my freedom. The words, simple as they were, cut through the layers of time, revealing the truth I'd avoided. There was no time for such plain speak. Apocalypse's war was already at my gates, so instead of freedom, I gave her wrath. The ultra-diode ray would never be her fate again. Not in this timeline, not in my time. But I wasn't finished. My younger self, the boy who had become Kang before me, needed to be sent to war. I guided him, sent him to glory, to ensure that his journey would inevitably lead to this moment, to me. To protect Ravana, I had her taken to a hidden compound of my own making, a place where the violence of the world couldn't touch her. She would survive. I would find her again once this chaos was over. I had become Pharaoh. I had mastered time. I had succeeded in my one purpose, to save her. But in the end, even with all my power, the trap was closing around me. The weight of my choices, of becoming everything I'd sworn I would destroy, was pulling me into a fate of my own making. I believed knowing the past would protect me from the present. I was so fixated on Ravana's salvation, on rewriting the mistakes I had made, that I failed to see my fate already cemented. I thought I could prepare, that the ultra-diode and my legions of soldiers would save me from the consequences of my actions. But in the end, I had only become my own shortcut. I failed, just as Kang had, exactly as he had. And in that moment, I understood the bitter truth. I had become what I had sworn to destroy. So, like him, I ran, recklessly, without direction, with no plan and no strategy. I became my own victim, cast away from the life I had fought for, thrown into the darkness of the future. I traveled 1,000 years forward to an atomic wasteland, a future ravaged by war and decay. I thought I knew what I would find there, a war-torn future waiting to be conquered, the forge where I would truly become Kang. But once again, time held a surprise for me, a lesson I couldn't escape, no matter how much I tried to manipulate her. For there, in that future, was Ravana. Once again, time had outwitted me. The woman I sought to save, the woman I had destroyed and rebuilt, was there in a future I never imagined. And with her, the consequences of my choices.